Jem, are you trying to scare me? You know I'm too old." "Be quiet," he said, and I knew he was not joking. The night was still. I could hear his breath coming easily beside me. Occasionally there was a sudden breeze that hit my bare legs, but it was all that remained of a promised windy night. This was the stillness before a thunderstorm. We listened. "Heard an old dog just then," I said. "It's not that," Jem answered. "I hear it when we're walking along, but when we stop, I don't hear it." "You hear my costume rustling. Oh, it's just Halloween got you." I said it more to convince myself than Jem, for sure enough, as we began walking, I heard what he was talking about. It was not my costume. "It's just old Cecil," said Jem presently. "He won't get us again. Let's don't let him think we're hurrying." We slowed to a crawl. I asked Jem how Cecil could follow us in this dark. Looked to me like he'd bump into us from behind. "I can see you, Scout," Jem said. "How? I can't see you. Your fat streaks are showing. Mrs. Crenshaw painted 'em with some of that shiny stuff, so they'd show up under the footlights. I can see you pretty well, and I expect Cecil can see you well enough to keep his distance." I would show Cecil that we knew he was behind us, and we were ready for him. "Cecil Jacobs is a big wet hen!" I yelled suddenly, turning around. We stopped. There was no acknowledgment, save "hen" bouncing off the distant schoolhouse wall. "I'll get him," said Jem. "Hey! Hey! Hey! Hey!" answered the schoolhouse wall. It was unlike Cecil to hold out for so long. Once he pulled a joke, he'd repeat it time and again. We should have been leapt at already. Jem signaled for me to stop again. He said softly, "Scout, can you take that thing off?" "I think so, but I ain't got anything on under it much." "I've got your dress here." "I can't get it on in the dark." "Okay," he said. "Never mind." "Jem, are you afraid?" "No. Think we're almost to the tree now. Few yards from that, and we'll be to the road. We can see the street light then." Jem was talking in an unhurried, flat, toneless voice. I wondered how long he would try to keep the Cecil myth going. "You reckon we ought to sing, Jem?" "No. Be real quiet again, Scout." We had not increased our pace. Jem knew as well as I that it was difficult to walk fast without stumping a toe, tripping on stones, and other inconveniences, and I was barefooted. Maybe it was the wind rustling the trees. But there wasn't any wind, and there weren't any trees except the big oak. Our company shuffled and dragged his feet, as if wearing heavy shoes. Whoever it was wore thick cotton pants. What I thought were trees rustling was the soft swish of cotton on cotton, wheek, wheek, with every step. I felt the sand go cold under my feet, and I knew we were near the big oak. Jem pressed my head. We stopped and listened. Shufflefoot had not stopped with us this time. His trousers swished softly and steadily. Then they stopped. He was running toward us with no child's steps. "Run, Scout! Run! Run!" Jem screamed. I took one giant step and found myself reeling, my arms useless, in the dark. I could not keep my balance. "Jem! Jem, help me, Jem!" Something crushed the chicken wire around me. Metal ripped on metal. and I fell to the ground and rolled as far as I could, floundering to escape my wire prison. From somewhere nearby came scuffling, kicking sounds, sounds of shoes and flesh scraping dirt and roots. Someone rolled against me, and I felt Jem. He was up like lightning, and pulling me with him, but though my head and shoulders were free, I was so entangled we didn't get very far. We were nearly to the road when I felt Jem's hand leave me, felt him jerk backwards to the ground. More scuffling, and there came a dull crunching sound, and Jem screamed. I ran in the direction of Jem's scream and sank into a flabby male stomach. Its owner said, "Oof!" and tried to catch my arms, but they were tightly pinioned. His stomach was soft, but his arms were like steel. He slowly squeezed the breath out of me. I could not move. Suddenly, he was jerked backwards and flung on the ground, almost carrying me with him. I thought, "Jem's up." One's mind works very slowly at times. Stunned, I stood there dumbly. The scuffling noises were dying. Someone wheezed, and the night was still again. Still, but for a man breathing heavily and staggering. I thought he went to the tree and leaned against it. He coughed violently, a sobbing, bone-shaking cough. "Jem?" There was no answer but the man's heavy breathing. "Jem?" Jem didn't answer. The man began moving around, as if searching for something. I heard him groan and pull something heavy along the ground. It was slowly coming to me that there were now 4 people under the tree. "Atticus?" The man was walking heavily and unsteadily toward the road. I went to where I thought he had been, and felt frantically along the ground, reaching out with my toes. Presently I touched someone. "Jem?" My toes touched trousers, a belt buckle, buttons, something I could not identify, a collar, and a face. A prickly stubble on the face told me it was not Jem's. I smelled stale whiskey. I made my way along in what I thought was the direction of the road. I was not sure, because I had been turned around so many times, but I found it and looked down to the street light. A man was passing under it. The man was walking with the staccato steps of someone carrying a load too heavy for him. He was going around the corner. He was carrying Jem. Jem's arm was dangling crazily in front of him. By the time I reached the corner, the man was crossing our front yard. Light from our front door framed Atticus for an instant. He ran down the steps, and together he and the man took Jem inside. I was at the front door when they were going down the hall. Aunt Alexandra was running to meet me. "Call Dr. Reynolds!" Atticus' voice came sharply from Jem's room. "Where's Scout?" "Here she is," Aunt Alexandra called, pulling me along with her to the telephone. She tugged at me anxiously. "I'm all right, Auntie," I said. "You better call." She pulled the receiver from the hook and said, "Eula May, get Dr. Reynolds, quick." "Agnes, is your father home?" "Oh, God, where is he?" "Please, tell him to come over here as soon as he comes in. Please, it's urgent." There was no need for Aunt Alexandra to identify herself. People in Macomb knew each other's voices. Atticus came out of Jem's room. The moment Aunt Alexandra broke the connection, Atticus took the receiver from her. He rattled the hook, then said, "Eula May, get me the sheriff, please." "Heck, Atticus Finch. Someone's been after my children. Jem's hurt." between here and the schoolhouse. I can't leave my boy. Run out there for me, please, and see if he's still around. Doubt if you'll find him now, but I'd like to see him if you do. Got to go now. Thanks, Heck.
Atticus? Is Jem dead?
No, Scout. Look after her, sister, he called as he went down the hall. Aunt Alexandra's fingers trembled as she unwound the crushed fabric and wire from around me.
"Are you all right, darling?"
she asked over and over as she worked me free. It was a relief to be out. My arms were beginning to tingle, and they were red with small hexagonal marks. I rubbed them, and they felt better.
"Auntie, is Jem dead?"
No, darling, he's unconscious. We won't know how badly he's hurt until Dr. Reynolds gets here."
"Jean Louise, what happened?"
"I don't know." She left it at that. She brought me something to put on, and had I thought about it then, I would have never let her forget it. In her distraction, Auntie brought me my overalls. "Put these on, darling," she said, handing me the garment she most despised. She rushed back to Jem's room, then came to me in the hall. She patted me vaguely and went back to Jem's room. A car stopped in front of the house. I knew Dr. Reynolds' step almost as well as my father's. He had brought Jem and me into the world, had led us through every childhood disease known to man, including the time Jem fell out of the treehouse, and he had never lost our friendship. Dr. Reynolds said if we had been boil-prone, things would have been different, but we doubted it. He came in the door and said, "Good Lord!" He walked toward me, said, "You're still standing," and changed his course. He knew every room in the house. He also knew that if I was in bad shape, so was Jem. After 10 forevers, Dr. Reynolds returned.
"Is Jem dead?"
I asked. "Far from it," he said, squatting down to me. "He's got a bump on the head just like yours, and a broken arm. Scout, look that way. No, don't turn your head, roll your eyes. Now look over yonder. He's got a bad break. So far as I can tell now, it's in the elbow, like somebody tried to wring his arm off. Now look at me."
"Then he's not dead?"
"No." Dr. Reynolds got to his feet. "We can't do much tonight," he said, "except try to make him as comfortable as we can. We'll have to X-ray his arm. Looks like he'll be wearing his arm way out by his side for a while. Don't worry, though. He'll be as good as new. Boys his age bounce." While he was talking, Dr. Reynolds had been looking keenly at me, lightly fingering the bump that was coming on my forehead. "You don't feel broke anywhere, do you?" Dr. Reynolds's small joke made me smile.
"Then you don't think he's dead, then?"
He put on his hat. "Now, I may be wrong, of course, but I think he's very alive. Shows all the symptoms of it. Go have a look at him, and when I come back, we'll get together and decide." Dr. Reynolds's step was young and brisk. Mr. Heck Tate's was not. His heavy boots punished the porch, and he opened the door awkwardly. But he said the same thing Dr. Reynolds said when he came in. "You all right, Scout?" he added.
"Yes, sir. I'm going in to see Jem. Atticus and them's in there."
"I'll go with you," said Mr. Tate. Aunt Alexandra had shaded Jem's reading light with a towel, and his room was dim. Jem was lying on his back. There was an ugly mark along one side of his face. His left arm lay out from his body. His elbow was bent slightly.
but in the wrong direction. Jem was frowning.
"Jem?"
Atticus spoke. "He can't hear you, Scout. He's out like a light. He was coming around, but Dr. Reynolds put him out again."
"Yes, sir."
I retreated. Jem's room was large and square. Aunt Alexandra was sitting in a rocking chair by the fireplace. The man who brought Jem in was standing in a corner, leaning against the wall. He was some countryman I did not know. He had probably been at the pageant, and was in the vicinity when it happened. He must have heard our screams and come running. Atticus was standing by Jem's bed. Mr. Heck Tate stood in the doorway. His hat was in his hand, and a flashlight bulged from his pants pocket. He was in his working clothes. "Come in, Heck," said Atticus. "Did you find anything? I can't conceive of anyone low down enough to do a thing like this, but I hope you found him." Mr. Tate sniffed. He glanced sharply at the man in the corner, nodded to him, then looked around the room, at Jem, at Aunt Alexandra, then at Atticus. "Sit down, Mr. Finch," he said pleasantly. Atticus said, "Let's all sit down. Have that chair, Heck. I'll get another one from the living room." Mr. Tate sat in Jem's desk chair. He waited until Atticus returned and settled himself. I wondered why Atticus had not brought a chair for the man in the corner, but Atticus knew the ways of country people far better than I. Some of his rural clients would park their long-eared steeds under the chinaberry trees in the backyard, and Atticus would often keep appointments on the back steps. This one was probably more comfortable where he was. "Mr. Finch," said Mr. Tate, "tell you what I found. I found a little girl's dress. It's out there in my car." "That your dress, Scout?"
"Yes, sir. If it's a pink one with smocking," I said. Mr. Tate was behaving as if he were on the witness stand. He liked to tell things his own way, untrammeled by state or defense, and sometimes it took him a while. "I found some funny-looking pieces of muddy-colored cloth." "That's my costume, Mr. Tate." Mr. Tate ran his hands down his thighs. He rubbed his left arm and investigated Jem's mantelpiece. Then he seemed to be interested in the fireplace. His fingers sought his long nose. "What is it, Heck?" said Atticus. Mr. Tate found his neck and rubbed it. "Bob Ewell's lying on the ground under that tree down yonder, with a kitchen knife stuck up under his ribs. He's dead, Mr. Finch." Chapter 29. Aunt Alexandra got up and reached for the mantelpiece. Mr. Tate rose, but she declined assistance. For once in his life, Atticus's instinctive courtesy failed him. He sat where he was. Somehow I could think of nothing but Mr. Bob Ewell saying he'd get Atticus if it took him the rest of his life. Mr. Ewell almost got him, and it was the last thing he did. "Are you sure?" Atticus said bleakly. "He's dead, all right," said Mr. Tate. "He's good and dead. He won't hurt these children again." "I didn't mean that." Atticus seemed to be talking in his sleep. His age was beginning to show, his one sign of inner turmoil. The strong line of his jaw melted a little. One became aware of telltale creases forming under his ears. One noticed not his jet-black hair, but the gray patches growing at his temples. "Hadn't we better go to the living room?" Aunt Alexandra said at last. "If you don't mind,"
said Mr. Tate. "I'd rather us stay in here, if it won't hurt Jem any. I want to have a look at his injuries while Scout tells us about it."
"Is it all right if I leave?" she asked. "I'm just one person too many in here. I'll be in my room if you want me, Atticus." Aunt Alexandra went to the door, but she stopped and turned. "Atticus, I had a feeling about this tonight. This is my fault," she began. "I should have—"
Mr. Tate held up his hand. "You go ahead, Miss Alexandra. I know it's been a shock to you, and don't you fret yourself about anything. Why, if we followed our feelings all the time, we'd be like cats chasing their tails. Miss Scout, see if you can tell us what happened, while it's still fresh in your mind. You think you can? Did you see him following you?"
I went to Atticus and felt his arms go around me. I buried my head in his lap. "We started home. I said, 'Jem, I forgot my shoes.' Soon as we started back for 'em, the lights went out. Jem said I could get 'em tomorrow."
"Scout, raise up so Mr. Tate can hear you," Atticus said.
I crawled into his lap. "Then Jem said, 'Hush a minute.' I thought he was thinking. He always wants you to hush so he can think. Then he said he heard something. We thought it was Cecil."
"Cecil?"
"Cecil Jacobs. He scared us once tonight, and we thought it was him again. He had on a sheet. They gave a quarter for the best costume. I don't know who won it."
"Where were you when you thought it was Cecil?"
"Just a little piece from the schoolhouse. I yelled something at him."
"You yelled what?"
"Cecil Jacobs is a big fat hen, I think." We didn't hear nothing. Then Jem yelled, 'Hello,' or something loud enough to wake the dead."
"Just a minute, Scout," said Mr. Tate. "Mr. Finch, did you hear them?" Atticus said he didn't. He had the radio on. Aunt Alexandra had hers going in her bedroom. He remembered, because she told him to turn his down a bit so she could hear hers. Atticus smiled. "I always play a radio too loud." "I wonder if the neighbors heard anything," said Mr. Tate. "I doubt it, Heck. Most of them listen to their radios or go to bed with the chickens. Morty Atkinson may have been up, but I doubt it." "Go ahead, Scout," Mr. Tate said.
"Well, after Jem yelled, we walked on. Mr. Tate, I was shut up in my costume, but I could hear it myself then. Footsteps, I mean. They walked when we walked, and stopped when we stopped. Jem said he could see me because Mrs. Crenshaw put some kind of shiny paint on my costume. I was a ham."
"How's that?" asked Mr. Tate, startled.
Atticus described my role to Mr. Tate, plus the construction of my garment.
"You should have seen her when she came in," he said. "It was crushed to a pulp."
Mr. Tate rubbed his chin.
"I wondered why he had those marks on him. His sleeves were perforated with little holes. There were 1 or 2 little puncture marks on his arms to match the holes. Let me see that thing, if you will, sir."
Atticus fetched the remains of my costume. Mr. Tate turned it over and bent it around to get an idea of its former shape.
"This thing probably saved her life," he said. "Look."
He pointed with a long forefinger. A shiny, clean line stood out on the dull wire.
"Bob Ewell meant business," Mr. Tate muttered. "He was out of his mind," said Atticus. "Don't like to contradict you, Mr. Finch. Wasn't crazy. Mean as hell. Low-down skunk with enough liquor in him to make him brave enough to kill children. He'd never have met you face to face." Atticus shook his head. "I can't conceive of a man who'd—" "Mr. Finch, there's just some kind of men you have to shoot before you can say Heidi to 'em. Even then, they ain't worth the bullet it takes to shoot 'em. Ewell is one of 'em." Atticus said, "I thought he got it all out of him the day he threatened me. Even if he hadn't, I thought he'd come after me. He had guts enough to pester a poor colored woman. He had guts enough to pester Judge Taylor when he thought the house was empty. So do you think he'd have met you to your face in daylight?" Mr. Tate sighed. "We'd better get on. Scout, you heard him behind you?" "Yes, sir." "When we got under the tree—" "How'd you know you were under the tree? You couldn't see thunder out there." "I was barefooted, and Jem says the ground's always cooler under a tree." "We'll have to make him a deputy. Go ahead." "Then, all of a sudden, something grabbed me and mashed my costume. Think I ducked on the ground. Heard a tussling under the tree, sort of. They were bamming against the trunk, sounded like. Jem found me and started pulling me toward the road. Mr. Ewell yanked him down, I reckon. They tussled some more, and then there was this funny noise. Jem hollered—" I stopped. That was Jem's arm. Anyway, Jem hollered, and I didn't hear him any more, and the next thing, Mr. Ewell was trying to squeeze me to death, I reckon. Then somebody yanked Mr. Ewell down. Jem must have got up, I guess. That's all I know." "And then?" Mr. Tate was looking at me sharply. "Somebody was staggering around and panting and coughing fit to die. I thought it was Jem at first, but it didn't sound like him, so I went looking for Jem on the ground. I thought Atticus had come to help us, and had got wore out." "Who was it?" "Why, there he is, Mr. Tate. He can tell you his name." As I said it, I half pointed to the man in the corner, but brought my arm down quickly, lest Atticus reprimand me for pointing. It was impolite to point. He was still leaning against the wall. He had been leaning against the wall when I came into the room, his arms folded across his chest. As I pointed, he brought his arms down and pressed the palms of his hands against the wall. They were white hands, sickly white hands that had never seen the sun. So white, they stood out garishly against the dull cream wall in the dim light of Jem's room. I looked from his hands to his sand-stained khaki pants. My eyes traveled up his thin frame to his torn denim shirt. His face was as white as his hands, but for a shadow on his jutting chin. His cheeks were thin to hollowness. His mouth was wide. There were shallow, almost delicate indentations at his temples, and his gray eyes were so colorless, I thought he was blind. His hair was dead and thin, almost feathery on top of his head. When I pointed to him, his palms slipped slightly, leaving greasy sweat streaks on the wall, and he hooked his thumbs in his belt. A strange small spasm shook him, as if he heard fingernails scrape slate. But as I gazed at him in wonder, the tension slowly drained from his face. His lips parted into a timid smile, and our neighbor's image blurred with my sudden tears. "Hey, Boo," I said. Chapter 30. "Mr. Arthur, honey," said Atticus, gently correcting me. "Jean-Louise, this is Mr. Arthur Radley. I believe he already knows you." If Atticus could blandly introduce me to Boo Radley at a time like this, well, that was Atticus. Boo saw me run instinctively to the bed where Jem was sleeping, for the same shy smile crept across his face. Hot with embarrassment, I tried to cover up by covering Jem up. Don't touch him," Atticus said. Mr. Heck Tate sat looking intently at Boo through his horn-rimmed glasses. He was about to speak when Dr. Reynolds came down the hall. "Everybody out," he said as he came in the door. "Evening, Arthur. Didn't notice you the first time I was here." Dr. Reynolds's voice was as breezy as his step, as though he had said it every evening of his life, an announcement that astounded me even more than being in the same room with Boo Radley. Of course, even Boo Radley got sick sometimes, I thought. But on the other hand, I wasn't sure. Dr. Reynolds was carrying a big package wrapped in newspaper. He put it down on Jem's desk and took off his coat. "You're quite satisfied he's alive now?" "Tell you how I knew. When I tried to examine him, he kicked me. Had to put him out good and proper to touch him. So scat," he said to me. Said Atticus, glancing at Boo. "Heck, let's go out on the front porch. There are plenty of chairs out there, and it's still warm enough." I wondered why Atticus was inviting us to the front porch instead of the living room. Then I understood. The living room lights were awfully strong. We filed out. First Mr. Tate. Atticus was waiting at the door for him to go ahead of him. Then he changed his mind and followed Mr. Tate. People have a habit of doing everyday things, even under the oddest conditions. I was no exception. "Come along, Mr. Arthur," I heard myself saying. "You don't know the house real well. I'll just take you to the porch, sir." He looked down at me and nodded. I led him through the hall and past the living room. "Won't you have a seat, Mr. Arthur? This rocking chair's nice and comfortable." My small fantasy about him was alive again. He would be sitting on the porch. "Right pretty spell we're having, isn't it, Mr. Arthur?" "Yes, a right pretty spell." Feeling slightly unreal, I led him to the chair farthest from Atticus and Mr. Tate. It was in deep shadow. Boo would feel more comfortable in the dark. Atticus was sitting in the swing, and Mr. Tate was in a chair next to him. The light from the living-room windows was strong on them. I sat beside Boo. "Well, heck," Atticus was saying, "I guess the thing to do—" Good Lord, I'm losing my memory. Atticus pushed up his glasses and pressed his fingers to his eyes. "Jem's not quite 13. No, he's already 13. I can't remember. Anyway, it'll come before county court." "What will, Mr. Finch?" Mr. Tate uncrossed his legs and leaned forward. "Of course it was clear-cut self-defense, but I'll have to go to the office and hunt up—" "Mr. Finch, do you think Jem killed Bob Ewell? Do you think that?" "You heard what Scout said. There's no doubt about it. She said Jem got up and yanked him off her. He probably got hold of Ewell's knife somehow in the dark. We'll find out tomorrow."
"Mr. Finch, hold on," said Mr. Tate. "Jem never stabbed Bob Ewell."
Atticus was silent for a moment. He looked at Mr. Tate as if he appreciated what he said, but Atticus shook his head.
"Heck, it's mighty kind of you, and I know you're doing it from that good heart of yours, but don't start anything like that."
Mr. Tate got up and went to the edge of the porch. He spat into the shrubbery, then thrust his hands into his hip pockets and faced Atticus.
"Like what?" he said.
"I'm sorry if I spoke sharply, Heck," Atticus said simply, "but nobody's hushing this up. I don't live that way."
"Nobody's gonna hush anything up, Mr. Finch."
Mr. Tate's voice was quiet, but his boots were planted so solidly on the porch floorboards, it seemed that they grew there. A curious contest, the nature of which eluded me, was developing between my father and the sheriff. It was Atticus's turn to get up and go to the edge of the porch. He said, "H'm," and spat dryly into the yard. He put his hands in his pockets and faced Mr. Tate.
"Heck, you haven't said it, but I know what you're thinking. Thank you for it. Jean Louise," he turned to me, "you said Jem yanked Mr. Ewell off you?"
"Yes, sir. That's what I thought.
See there, Heck? Thank you from the bottom of my heart, but I don't want my boy starting out with something like this over his head. Best way to clear the air is to have it all out in the open. Let the county come and bring sandwiches. I don't want him growing up with a whisper about him. I don't want anybody saying, 'Jem Finch. His daddy paid a mint to get him out of that.' Sooner we get this over with, the better." "Mr. Finch," Mr. Tate said stolidly, "Bob Ewell fell on his knife. He killed himself."
Atticus walked to the corner of the porch. He looked at the wisteria vine. In his own way, I thought each was as stubborn as the other. I wondered who would give in first. Atticus's stubbornness was quiet and rarely evident, but in some ways he was as set as the Cunninghams. Mr. Tate's was unschooled and blunt, but it was equal to my father's.
"Heck," Atticus's back was turned, "if this thing's hushed up, it'll be a simple denial to Jem of the way I've tried to raise him. Sometimes I think I'm a total failure as a parent, but I'm all they've got. Before Jem looks at anyone else, he looks at me, and I've tried to live so I can look squarely back at him. If I connived at something like this, frankly, I couldn't meet his eye, and the day I can't do that, I'll know I've lost him. I don't want to lose him and Scout, because they're all I've got. Mr. Finch," Mr. Tate was still planted to the floorboards, "Bob Ewell fell on his knife. I can prove it."
Atticus wheeled around. His hands dug into his pockets.
"Heck, can't you even try to see it my way? You've got children of your own, but I'm older than you. When mine are grown, I'll be an old man, if I'm still around. But right now, If they don't trust me, they won't trust anybody. Jem and Scout know what happened. If they hear of me saying downtown something different happened, heck, I won't have them any more. I can't live one way in town and another way in my home."
Mr. Tate rocked on his heels and said patiently,
"He'd flung Jem down. He stumbled over a root under that tree, and look, I can show you."
Mr. Tate reached in his side pocket and withdrew a long switchblade knife. As he did so, Dr. Reynolds came to the door.
"The son deceased's under that tree, Doctor, just inside the schoolyard. Got a flashlight? Better have this one. I can ease around and turn my car lights on," said Dr. Reynolds, but he took Mr. Tate's flashlight. "Jem's all right. He won't wake up tonight, I hope, so don't worry." "That the knife that killed him, Heck?" "No, sir. Still in him. Looked like a kitchen knife from the handle. Ken ought to be there with the hearse by now, Doctor. Night."
Mr. Tate flicked open the knife.
"It was like this," he said.
He held the knife and pretended to stumble. As he leaned forward, his left arm went down in front of him.
"See there? Stabbed himself through that soft stuff between his ribs. His whole weight drove it in."
Mr. Tate closed the knife and jammed it back in his pocket.
"Scout is 8 years old," he said. "She was too scared to know exactly what went on." "You'd be surprised," Atticus said grimly. "I'm not saying she made it up. I'm saying she was too scared to know exactly what happened. It was mighty dark out there, black as ink. It'd take somebody mighty used to the dark to make a competent witness."
"I won't have it," Atticus said softly.
"God damn it! I'm not thinking of Jem!"
Mr. Tate's boot hit the floorboard so hard the lights in Miss Morty's bedroom went on. Miss Stephanie Crawford's lights went on. Atticus and Mr. Tate looked across the street, then at each other. They waited. When Mr. Tate spoke again, his voice was barely audible. "Mr. Finch, I hate to fight you when you're like this. You've been under a strain tonight no man should ever have to go through. Why you ain't in the bed from it, I don't know. But I do know that for once you haven't been able to put 2 and 2 together. And we've got to settle this tonight, because tomorrow'll be too late. Bob Yule's got a kitchen knife in his craw." Mr. Tate added that Atticus wasn't going to stand there and maintain that any boy Jem's size with a busted arm had fight enough left in him to tackle and kill a grown man in the pitch dark. "Heck," said Atticus abruptly, "that was a switchblade you were waving. Where'd you get it?" "Took it off a drunk man," Mr. Tate answered coolly. "I was trying to remember. Mr. Yule was on me, then he went down. Jem must have gotten up. At least, I thought." "Heck, I said I took it off a drunk man downtown tonight. Yule probably found that kitchen knife in the dump somewhere. Honed it down and bided his time. Just bided his time." Atticus made his way to the swing and sat down. His hands dangled limply between his knees. He was looking at the floor. He had moved with the same slowness that night in front of the jail, when I thought it took him forever to fold his newspaper and toss it in his chair. Mr. Tate clumped softly around the porch. "It ain't your decision, Mr. Finch. It's all mine. It's my decision and my responsibility. For once, if you don't see it my way, there's not much you can do about it. If you want to try,
I'll call you a liar to your face. Your boy never stabbed Bob Ewell, he said slowly. Didn't come near a mile of it, and now you know it. All he wanted to do was get him and his sister safely home.
Mr. Tate stopped pacing. He stopped in front of Atticus, and his back was to us.
I'm not a very good man, sir, but I am sheriff of Macomb County. Lived in this town all my life, and I'm going on 43 years old. Know everything that's happened here since before I was born. There's a black boy dead for no reason, and the man responsible for it's dead. Let the dead bury the dead this time, Mr. Finch. Let the dead bury the dead.
Mr. Tate went to the swing and picked up his hat. It was lying beside Atticus. Mr. Tate pushed back his hair and put his hat on.
I never heard tell that it's against the law for a citizen to do his utmost to prevent a crime from being committed, which is exactly what he did. But maybe you'll say it's my duty to tell the town all about it, and not hush it up. Know what had happened then? All the ladies in Macomb, including my wife, would be knocking on his door bringing angel food cakes. To my way of thinking, Mr. Finch, taking the one man who's done you and this town a great service, and dragging him with his shy ways into the limelight, to me, that's a sin. It's a sin, and I'm not about to have it on my head. If it was any other man, it'd be different, but not this man, Mr. Finch.
Mr. Tate was trying to dig a hole in the floor with the toe of his boot. He pulled his nose, then he massaged his left arm.
I may not be much, Mr. Finch, but I'm still sheriff of Macomb County, and Bob Ewell fell on his knife. Good night, sir.
Mr. Tate stamped off the porch and strode across the front yard. His car door slammed, and he drove away. Atticus sat looking at the floor for a long time. Finally, he raised his head.
"Scout," he said, "Mr. Ewell fell on his knife. Can you possibly understand?"
Atticus looked like he needed cheering up. I ran to him and hugged him and kissed him with all my might. "Yes, sir, I understand," I reassured him. "Mr. Tate was right." Atticus disengaged himself and looked at me.
"What do you mean?"
"Well, it'd be sort of like shooting a mockingbird, wouldn't it?" Atticus put his face in my hair and rubbed it. When he got up and walked across the porch into the shadows, his youthful step had returned. Before he went inside the house, he stopped in front of Boo Radley. "Thank you for my children, Arthur," he said. Chapter 31. When Boo Radley shuffled to his feet, light from the living-room windows glistened on his forehead. Every move he made was uncertain, as if he were not sure his hands and feet could make proper contact with the things he touched. He coughed his dreadful, railing cough, and was so shaken he had to sit down again. His hand searched for his hip pocket, and he pulled out a handkerchief. He coughed into it. Then he wiped his forehead. Having been so accustomed to his absence, I found it incredible that he had been sitting beside me all this time, present. He had not made a sound. Once more he got to his feet. He turned to me and nodded toward the front door. "You'd like to say good night to Jem,
Wouldn't you, Mr. Arthur? Come right in." I led him down the hall. Aunt Alexandra was sitting by Jem's bed. "Come in, Arthur," she said. "He's still asleep." Dr. Reynolds gave him a heavy sedative. "Jean Louise, is your father in the living room?" "Yes, ma'am. I think so." "I'll just go speak to him a minute. Dr. Reynolds left some—" Her voice trailed away. Boo had drifted to a corner of the room, where he stood with his chin up, peering from a distance at Jem. I took him by the hand, a hand surprisingly warm for its whiteness. I tugged him a little, and he allowed me to lead him to Jem's bed. Dr. Reynolds had made a tent-like arrangement over Jem's arm, to keep the cover off, I guess, and Boo leaned forward and looked over it. An expression of timid curiosity was on his face, as though he had never seen a boy before. His mouth was slightly open, and he looked at Jem from head to foot. Boo's hand came up, but he let it drop to his side. "You can pet him, Mr. Arthur. He's asleep. You couldn't if he was awake, though. He wouldn't let you," I found myself explaining. "Go ahead." Boo's hand hovered over Jem's head. "Go on, sir. He's asleep." His hand came down lightly on Jem's hair. I was beginning to learn his body English. His hand tightened on mine, and he indicated that he wanted to leave. I led him to the front porch, where his uneasy steps halted. He was still holding my hand, and he gave no sign of letting me go. "Will you take me home?" He almost whispered it, in the voice of a child afraid of the dark. I put my foot on the top step and stopped. I would lead him through our house, but I would never lead him home. "Mr. Arthur, bend your arm down here, like that. That's right, sir." I slipped my hand into the crook of his arm. He had to stoop a little to accommodate me, but if Miss Stephanie Crawford was watching from her upstairs window, she would see Arthur Radley escorting me down the sidewalk, as any gentleman would do. We came to the street-light on the corner, and I wondered how many times Dill had stood there hugging the fat pole, watching, waiting, hoping. I wondered how many times Jem and I had made this journey, but I entered the Radley front gate for the second time in my life. Boo and I walked up the steps to the porch. His fingers found the front doorknob. He gently released my hand, opened the door, went inside, and shut the door behind him. I never saw him again. Neighbors bring food with death, and flowers with sickness, and little things in between. Boo was our neighbor. He gave us 2 soap dolls, a broken watch and chain, a pair of good-luck pennies, and our lives. But neighbors give in return. We never put back into the tree what we took out of it. We had given him nothing, and it made me sad. I turned to go home. Street lights winked down the street all the way to town. I had never seen our neighborhood from this angle. There were Miss Maudie's, Miss Stephanie's. There was our house. I could see the porch swing. Miss Rachel's house was beyond us, plainly visible. I could even see Mrs. DuBose's. I looked behind me. To the left of the brown door was a long, shuttered window. I walked to it, stood in front of it, and turned around. In daylight, I thought,
You could see to the post office corner. Daylight. In my mind the night faded. It was daytime, and the neighborhood was busy. Miss Stephanie Crawford crossed the street to tell the latest to Miss Rachel. Miss Maudie bent over her azaleas. It was summer-time, and 2 children scampered down the sidewalk toward a man approaching in the distance. The man waved, and the children raced each other to him. It was still summer-time, and the children came closer. A boy trudged down the sidewalk, dragging a fishing pole behind him. A man stood waiting, with his hands on his hips. Summer-time, and his children played in the front yard with their friend, enacting a strange little drama of their own invention. It was fall, and his children fought on the sidewalk in front of Mrs. DeVose's. The boy helped his sister to her feet, and they made their way home. Fall, and his children trotted to and fro around the corner, the day's woes and triumphs on their faces. They stopped at an oak tree, delighted, puzzled, apprehensive. Winter, and his children shivered at the front gate, silhouetted against a blazing house. Winter, and a man walked into the street, dropped his glasses, and shot a dog. Summer, and he watched his children's heart break. Autumn again, and Boo's children needed him. Atticus was right. One time he said, "You never really know a man until you stand in his shoes and walk around in them." Just standing on the Radley porch was enough. The street lights were fuzzy from the fine rain that was falling. As I made my way home, I felt very old, but when I looked at the tip of my nose I could see fine misty beads, but looking cross-eyed made me dizzy, so I quit. As I made my way home, I thought what a thing to tell Jem tomorrow. He'd be so mad he missed it, he wouldn't speak to me for days. As I made my way home, I thought Jem and I would get grown, but there wasn't much else left for us to learn, except possibly algebra. I ran up the steps and into the house. Aunt Alexandra had gone to bed, and Atticus's room was dark. I would see if Jem might be reviving. Atticus was in Jem's room, sitting by his bed. He was reading a book. "Is Jem awake yet?" "Sleeping peacefully. He won't be awake until morning." "Oh, are you sitting up with him?" "Just for an hour or so. Go to bed, Scout. You've had a long day." "Well, I think I'll stay with you for a while." "Suit yourself," said Atticus. It must have been after midnight, and I was puzzled by his amiable acquiescence. He was shrewder than I, however. The moment I sat down, I began to feel sleepy. "What you readin'?" I asked. Atticus turned the book over. "Something of Jem's, called The Gray Ghost." I was suddenly awake. "Why'd you get that one?" "Honey, I don't know. Just picked it up. One of the few things I haven't read," he said pointedly. "Read it out loud, please, Atticus. It's real scary." "No," he said. "You've had enough scaring for a while. This is too—"
"Atticus, I wasn't scared."
He raised his eyebrows, and I protested.
"Leastways, not till I started telling Mr. Tate about it. Jem wasn't scared. Asked him, and he said he wasn't. Besides, nothing's real scary, except in books."
Atticus opened his mouth to say something, but shut it again. He took his thumb from the middle of the book and turned back to the first page. I moved over and leaned my head against his knee. He said. The Grey Ghost by Secretary Hawkins. Chapter 1. I willed myself to stay awake, but the rain was so soft, and the room was so warm, and his voice was so deep, and his knee was so snug, that I slept. Seconds later, it seemed, his shoe was gently nudging my ribs. He lifted me to my feet and walked me to my room.
"Heard every word you said," I muttered. "Wasn't sleep at all. It's about a ship and three-fingered Fred and Stoner's boy."
He unhooked my overalls, leaned me against him, and pulled them off. He held me up with one hand and reached for my pajamas with the other.
"Yeah, and they all thought it was Stoner's boy messing up their clubhouse and throwing ink all over it, and—"
He guided me to the bed and sat me down. He lifted my legs and put me under the cover.
"And they chased him and never could catch him 'cause they didn't know what he looked like. And Atticus, when they finally saw him, why, he hadn't done any of those things. Atticus, he was real nice."
His hands were under my chin, pulling up the cover, tucking it around me. Most people are, Scout, when you finally see them. He turned out the light and went into Jem's room. He would be there all night, and he would be there when Jem waked up in the morning.
The End. You've been listening to Kill a Mockingbird by Harper Lee, narrated by Sally Darling. If you've enjoyed this book and this performance, Recorded Books recommends A Tree Grows in Brooklyn by Betty Smith, narrated by Barbara Rosenblatt, and A Separate Piece by John Knowles, narrated by Spike McClure. You'll find a wide selection of titles in the Recorded Books catalog, including bestsellers, mysteries, classics, histories, and more. So, to order another recorded book, or for a copy of our latest listing, please call us using the toll-free number found on the back of the book. You can order by phone with any major credit card, or by writing to us, or by faxing us. Don't forget to ask about easy 30-day rentals by mail. On our website, you can browse the catalog, hear about the latest releases, place orders, or tune into narrator profiles and author interviews. So visit us there at www.recordedbooks.com. And thank you for being a Recorded Books reader.